if OpenAI or Anthropic have a closed model that is worse than Llama, everybody will just use Llama 4.
I do think that Llama 4 is going to be another big leap on top of Llama 3.
Like the first thing when you mention AI, everybody knows ChatGPT, right?
Yep.
If that switches to a Meta Llama 4, then that could funnel insane amounts of data into Zuck's hands.
I mean, I would never question Zuck's ability to create the number one product in basically any digital space.
This is an interview with John Coogan, startup founder and investor with over $100 million raised. We talk about Llama 4, the downfall of OpenAI, Neuralink powered AI agents, and so much more. If you want to know where the future of AI is headed, then make sure to watch until the end. What do you think is Zuck's ultimate play with, making open source models that are better than even the best closed source models?
He identified that it was very important for Facebook to avoid being dependent on other big tech companies. The classic example is Apple.
Yeah.
Apple has always been a thorn in their side. And the same thing is true for AI. They've seen it as a necessary cost to train their own models. Now, there is an open question about how much longer Zuck can continue to train bigger and bigger models. If we keep seeing the scaling laws hold and the training runs get bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden it's not $1 billion, but it's $10 billion, and then it's $100 billion, and then it's $1 trillion to train one of these things, like will Meta and Zuck have the financial wherewithal?
But do you think like part of his strategy is just attacking other AI companies, right? By the way, I just launched a new workshop on how to make money with AI, which is now available inside of my community. It is the best place to be if you're serious about AI. But don't take my word for it. Listen to what the members have to say.
Join 500 of the brightest minds working in AI today.
It's a powerful community. I don't see anything else like it on the internet.
Get in now. The growth is so fast now. If you're not getting in now, you're left behind.
So, if you want to make money with AI, make sure to join. The link is in the description.
It's almost like defense. If these other companies get really big, they might have leverage over Facebook. And he wants to defend his castle from that type of attack. Like, he's definitely reacting. It's unclear if that's like a true attack.
Well, I'm going based off, what he said in the latest podcast. I don't remember which it was, but it was like from a week ago. And he said that his goal is to make Meta AI, the chatbot like interface, the most used chatbot in the world. And he says that it's his goal for 2024 and that they're actually on track hitting that much sooner. Then that could funnel insane amounts of data into Zuck's hands, right? Which could allow him to train even bigger models.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the question with the open source models is like, where is the data feedback loop? Because with stability, if you just put this model out in the wild, you're not getting the feedback for reinforcement learning that Midjourney is, where Midjourney generates 4 images, you select one, that's a really, really powerful signal.
Yeah.
And all of that data is really, really valuable. Obviously, ChatGPT has that, not just with the text interactions, but also the thumbs up, thumbs down on the responses to help fine tune further. This is really valuable data, and it's very, very good that Zuck has that feedback loop. I mean, I would never question Zuck's ability to create the number one product in basically any digital space because he has a billion people using products broadly, and there are a million ways to wedge people in. He's done this with Threads. Threads has gotten huge. Pretty much anything digitally, he could start an e-commerce website and have it be the biggest in the world very quickly. There's always questions about durability and the financial viability of these products, but yeah, I mean, it seems pretty adjacent right now. Just personally, from a user experience, I have not been enjoying the chatbot experiences on Meta products, specifically on the Instagram search bar. If I'm searching for something, I don't want to jump into a text interaction, and it's very unclear which direction you're going to go. So let's say you're looking for 3D renders of cars. You could type, hashtag 3D render, hashtag car. And that might pull up images, but if you type in 3D renders of cars, there's a chance that just throws you into an interaction with the chatbot, and the chatbot says, yes, 3D renders are often used in the automotive industry, and here's the software that they use. And it's like, that's not what I'm looking for, though. I'm looking for images. I'm here on Instagram. Like, chat is a different thing. And so I personally have been very frustrated with the implementation, just from a user experience perspective. I think it should be like a different button or a different field or something like that. But it certainly makes sense that, like, if you're if there are people that are accidentally using it, like that might be the right way to introduce people to the idea of chatting with a chatbot. It also might be good for the user stats. It's kind of unclear where it goes.
You mentioned Midjourney. Why do you think they've been able to carve out this path in the AI image tool, and most importantly, hold the lead? Because like that's something OpenAI failed to do.
Yeah, I think it's mostly just the will of the CEO, David Holes. They don't really have investors. It's a very small company. They're really focused on just making incredible images. They haven't been spread too thin. They've created this really vibrant Discord community, and they've really like focused on a more opinionated approach and curating. Like they sell this magazine. Have you read the Midjourney magazine? It's
No.
amazing. They print out like some of the best Midjourney photos every month, and they do some artist interviews, and you can really see that it's becoming a tool that's loved by like real artists. Whereas I feel like in other contexts, the image generation serves a very different purpose. Like if I go to ChatGPT and I wanted to generate an image, I'm probably not trying to create something super aesthetic
Yeah.
and super artistic. I'm really just going there to say, like, I just need a quick image of this and just do it really fast. Or one of the great things about the ChatGPT implementation is you can have it write a story, and then you can tell it, hey, just go generate images for this entire story, and it will just sit there and generate like 10 images. That's much harder to do on Midjourney. You can just let it cook for a little bit. It's more agentic in its in the ChatGPT implementation. But I don't think the images look as stylized, and they don't have as much of an opinion. And I think that's just because David Holes has been very focused on that and focused on the aesthetics of the product that he's creating. And it's created something really, really cool. And I think it's its own thing. It does raise the question of like how will there be one model to rule them all, or will there be more specialized models? And it's an open question, but I mean, at least right now, it seems like things are kind of fragmenting, which I think is probably positive. I think it's cool that there's like, that there might be one amazing model and company built around just cartoons, and then the other one might just be for photoreal stuff, and the other one might be for video. And I think that's kind of interesting. Over time, there'll probably be some consolidation, and there'll probably be just a few players. But yeah, it's fun to watch, and it's certainly fun to play with.
Yeah, and especially like you have actually when you're using Midjourney, you actually feel like you have control over the image, because in ChatGPT, it's writing the prompt for you.
Yep.
That's what people don't know.
Yep.
It's actually taking your input and then rewriting that into a DALL-E-free prompt, and then feeding that in based on OpenAI's guidelines and whatever. Midjourney doesn't do that, so you have like whatever you write, you actually feel like you create, and it's much more, as you said. The use case is different. Like people who go into Midjourney are looking for something higher quality, something more stylized. In ChatGPT, it's more like, quick image, a mock-up or whatever.
Yeah. It seems much more fine-tunable in Midjourney with like the different like style types and all sorts of different variables. And I mean, it's even easier to control aspect ratio, which obviously impacts the image incredibly. In ChatGPT, a lot of times I'll say like make a widescreen horizontal 16:9 image, and it'll just make a square that's formatted like that with like black bars on the side. I'm like, that's not what I wanted. And yeah, it's been it definitely clearly hasn't been like their key focus. Like they've been focused on like, what is ChatGPT great at? Like right now it's like research, doing homework. Like it really is phenomenal for that. And I still think it's best in class at that. And that's what I go to all the time if I just want to talk for a minute about a problem that I'm thinking about, ask a bunch of questions, boom, get all the answers. It's better than like a combination of like Google Wiki. It definitely saves me like, 80% of the time it would take to do some research on other stuff.
Now, what do you think happened to Stability AI? I don't know if you've been paying attention, but like the CEO left and the company is like facing some legal trouble or something.
I haven't looked into it too much, but I actually interviewed Ahmad Mustaq, the founder, and a nice guy. There was always a question about like, his background was like he was in finance,
Yeah, hedge fund.
and he was telling this whole story about like how it was open source, and it was just kind of odd because it was like it's weird if you're a finance guy and all of a sudden you're saying you don't want to make money. So like, what's the plan here? And I kind of asked him like, hey, maybe this goes into like a Red Hat Linux type of situation where you're you're partnering with other companies. And he kind of agreed, but wasn't super opinionated about it. I think what happened was the company grew very fast, raised a lot of money, and I think the main kind of debate about the company was who owns the intellectual property and the
Yeah.
training data and all the underlying IP, and was that represented appropriately to investors? These things are complicated, and I don't know that some investors might not be fully equipped to understand kind of the tech stack and the intellectual property that relates to every piece of the tech stack. I remember seeing some, like the big firms, when you do due diligence, even if you're not really a tech company, even they'll still ask you like list out every piece of software you use and the licenses. So you'll say like, well, we use this software and it's open source and it's MIT licensed, or this one is, a different license. And they actually have to check all of that because like if you wound up building something and you use the wrong license, like all the value could lie with that company, right? Because certain licenses you might be able to use it. And Llama is like this. Llama is open source and free, but if you have, I think, over 700 million users or so, there's some number where it's like, it's basically all the other big tech companies can't use it. Specifically, they set a bar there, and that's in the license. And so this is really important. And so with the stability stuff, it's like did it come from this research lab? Was the tech transferred appropriately? And then the training data is like very, very questionable all the time. You see people be like, I asked it to generate a Alamy stock photo, and it put the Alamy logo in there. Like, where did it learn the watermark from? That's interesting. And you've seen controversies about this all over the place with like, was this trained on YouTube data? Was this trained on, the New York Times? And there's been a lot of lawsuits. I think most of those, if the company's well run and wasn't being like truly malicious, it's usually just kind of like a settlement, licensing agreement, kind of a payday for the company that was doing it. And ideally the new product doesn't fully disrupt the old product. You can certainly see that with like the New York Times. Like yes, ChatGPT clearly, contains, at least it feels like it contains data from the NYT archive. I think that's been properly licensed now. But it's not replacing modern journalism because ChatGPT isn't going out and talking to new sources. So if you're a journalist, even though yes, it can instantiate the text very quickly, that's not really the job of a journalist. The job of a journalist is going out and getting new facts that don't exist on the internet and bringing those facts to the internet. And so in the very long term, you could imagine a chatbot going out there, interviewing people, talking to them, collecting facts, and then bringing those onto the internet. But we're pretty far from that. And right now, AI is still just kind of remixing the current facts.
I want to shift topics a bit. We touched on Meta's glasses with, Oculus and then Apple Vision Pro. What do you think will be like the AI-powered tech gadget that will really take off? Is it glasses? Is it some wearable ring or something else?
Yeah, I mean, I love all the people that are out there building new devices. I think it's really cool, and I'm rooting for all the entrepreneurs that are doing that. But truly, I think it's a mistake to not consider how powerful Apple is in this situation, and to some degree Samsung. It's like I'm not a crazy Apple fanboy. Like I have a phone, but I don't use a watch. But for many people, they have the iPhone, they have a Mac, they have a watch, they have AirPods. And when you put all those three together, it's like, well, what was the
ecosystem locking?
humane pin? What was it doing? It was running some software and it could project onto your hand Well, if you turn your wrist like this and you have a watch on, boom, you have a display that's much brighter, much clearer, and you can touch it and interact with it directly. So the watch obviates the need for the projector, in my opinion. And for a lot of these pins where they're recording or playing audio back, so you can talk to a device, or you can talk to an AI assistant, having an AirPod in is something that's extremely normalized right now. I've even heard about Gen Z kids going into interviews, job interviews, wearing AirPods.
That's crazy.
Just because they're so used to wearing AirPods, and they'll be like, "Oh, I have them on transparency mode," like, and it's seen as disrespectful, which is maybe true. Who knows? But the main thing is that, like, the younger generation and humanity broadly is becoming augmented. Like, we are truly augmenting ourselves with a supercomputer in your pocket, a display on your wrist at all times, and the ability to record and play back audio into your ears constantly. I do think I haven't used the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. The reviews are phenomenal. I probably will get a pair. I think they're very cool. I wouldn't be surprised if Apple eventually launches something similar, and kind of completes that circle. The VR pass-through stuff, obviously the Apple Vision Pro, phenomenal product from a polish and just resolution perspective. Way too heavy, way too version 1. But if you play that forward 5-10 years and you reduce the weight, yes, clearly people will be wearing these things like a lot of time. It'll take a long time for it to be normalized, just like, if boomers are talking to each other and one of them has AirPods in, that's going to be extremely disrespectful. With the Zoomers, it's not disrespectful at all. I think the millennial generation will probably never be cool with somebody wearing a VR headset while you're supposed to be talking to them. But the next generation, yeah, it'll probably be fine. And they'll probably be like, yeah, I trust you that you have pass-through on and can see me, and you're not, watching a 4K 3D movie right now. And, I see your eyes through the display, and, we're cool. But yeah, Apple has a lot of strength in general in terms of hardware. They have the entire supply chain, and they already have many of the most important modalities.
I think what makes the glasses really powerful is because, right now, sure, they're still a bit bulkier than normal glasses, but it's only a matter of time before you can't really tell, right? And
yep,
as you said, like, there's a lot of people that will see as weird, like having big, chunky goggles, VR goggles. So I think glasses are like the middle solution where you can still wear them. There is some, like, a visual enhancement, not as good as Vision Pro or whatever. But I think, having the speakers on the ear, having the ability to record, ask the LLM instantly what you see, I think that's a big reason why they're so popular. So, I mean, personally, I'm a believer in AI glasses. And I think it's actually kind of crazy that Europe is over-regulating them. I don't know if you saw the announcement that Meta said that they will not be releasing the AI glasses features in Europe. And if you extrapolate that, obviously right now, we will survive. But like, if you extrapolate that to future versions, imagine if Europe didn't have access to smartphones. Like, we would be like 2 decades behind. That would be insane, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this, like, regulation in Europe?
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. I don't know. I've been to Europe a few times. I'm certainly not an expert in it. I only see the regulation headlines for the most part. But it seems misinformed, but I understand why it's popular and why politicians are going after it. I mean, you're clearly not thinking it through a 20-year time horizon or even looking back further. You're thinking, there's a very rich company that's making a lot of money here, and they're not local. They're a foreign company. We should put pressure on them, and we should extract taxes from them, and we should make sure that they're supporting our citizens. And it's important to remember that the job of a government is, the governments are responsible for their people. We don't have a one world government, and so the French government is responsible to put the French people first for the most part. And America has been going through a similar process with kind of thinking through, do we want to be in these foreign wars? Maybe we want to put America first in some ways. It was a very controversial idea before Trump. Now it's become a little bit more popular. Most of the Republicans are using that type of rhetoric. It's still like an awkward rhetoric, but at the end of the day, regardless of if you're a Democrat or a Republican, it just makes sense that like, if you're saying America needs free healthcare, you're not saying America needs to give free healthcare to everyone in the world. Like no one is really saying that, because like the government is responsible to the people that vote it into power. And so it makes sense that a European government would try and do anything they could, even if it was a little short-term, short-sighted, to put the European populace first. And things like privacy, they poll very well. Who doesn't want privacy?
Yeah.
You have to think really deeply to think like, wait, maybe I actually am not that worried about my privacy on Facebook. And really, I'd rather have better targeted ads as opposed to seeing ads for things that I have no interest in and will never buy. That's like, and then also on the flip side, like maybe one day I want to run or work for a small business that needs to advertise, and having targeted advertising might be better. And so it's this very awkward long-term thinking that you have to go through to get to a place where you're like, yeah, actually, like I don't really care if Facebook has my data.
Yeah, I mean, people say they want privacy, but then the choices always go towards convenience, right? People always prefer convenience. Now, do you think like we're headed towards an AI slowdown or AI bubble? Like, are you seeing any of those, any of that rhetoric in the VC world?
I think I don't know financially. I mean, I'm sure deals are still getting done, and I think there's still a lot of money pouring into the space, but I think the idea that like AI moves so quickly, I think that's been overstated for the last 2 years since ChatGPT launched. Clearly, ChatGPT was like a qualitative step change in terms of just the experience of these products. But if you look at the actual performance curve of GPT over the last, I think it launched GPT-1 in 2016 or something, even maybe later, 2018.
Yes, somewhere there, yeah.
But it has been pretty steady, and I think the actual scaling curve is pretty smooth. So there aren't really AI winters and AI booms when you look at the actual fundamentals of are we building computing power? Are we expanding the scale of these models? That doesn't mean that there's not a qualitative moment where something just starts working. We saw this with image generation. You know, you go back to Google's Deep Dream, and it was just like dog faces everywhere, and it was super trippy and psychedelic. It was completely unusable. And then all of a sudden, when DALL-E 2 came out, I believe in 2020 or 2021, it was like, okay, this is actually usable. Like I made a whole video where I used DALL-E images just to illustrate everything, all the points, and generated all the images.
AI.
Yeah, exactly. And so it became like a useful tool. Now it wasn't like phenomenal, but it went from like unusable to usable, and that was huge. And I think we will see more of those. And when those things happen, they'll be very much like, oh shit moments, like, wow, like, okay, this is crazy. But I don't think we've really had any of those really since, I mean, the first deep fakes in like, I think that was like 2018-ish. That was a really crazy moment. Then ChatGPT was a crazy moment. Whisper was pretty cool. Transcription, and obviously image generation and video generation to some extent has been really cool. But even video generation is not very widely distributed just because of the computing intensity. Like it is taking much, much longer for this to actually get into the hands of people. And, you know, really like it won't feel crazy until there's enough computing power and the models are fast enough and like small enough that you can go and say, generate me, you know, a 10-minute video, and you get that or something like that. Like ChatGPT, you could talk to it for 10 minutes and you could go back and forth, and it was like it passed the Turing test, right? And that was a very qualitative barrier that we broke through. But for the past year, I was specifically talking about 2023 because that was the moment when the AI hype was at a all-time high. It was crazy. There were so many Twitter accounts just saying, "Oh, AI just changed the game again. This is the craziest thing."
Yeah.
And when I think back, it's like self-driving cars were deployed in 2022. That's when Waymo really got started there, and Cruise and SF, and then ChatGPT was 2022. Midjourney was 2022. And so a lot of these products, they actually came out in 2022. And then 2023 was, iterative improvements, a lot of great stuff happening. Love it. But nothing really dramatically changed if you were paying attention into, the daily lives of most AI users. These things certainly got implemented. They got rolled into new places. A lot of those integrations were pretty subpar, but for the right ones, they became very valuable. But I think the last year has mostly been like AI kind of quietly working behind the scenes to speed up little workflows here and there. And we haven't really seen anything that's completely reshaped the world. There was a lot of worry about AI and the election.
Yeah.
And I argued that traditional editing would actually be more impactful in this election than AI. And I think that's probably still true, just in the sense that if you can just clip what your competitor actually said and edit it in Adobe Premiere or After Effects, like
You can make them say anything.
you can make them say anything already. You don't necessarily need a deep fake or AI generated video. And I saw Elon did share an AI, like a joke Kamala Harris ad that was used an AI generated voice. And so maybe that's like the first idea of like, AI really affecting the election. But I still think that will be less impactful than all the standard editing that happens, where you just go back and you find a clip and you put it in a different context and you show, hey, this person said this in 2016 and then they said this year. You can see that they're not being consistent. And so I don't, and even the Kamala Harris thing, it's very clear that it's a joke. Yeah. And so it's not really misleading people. I think there are old boomers on Facebook who get misled by AI slop all the time. Yeah. But I haven't seen this happen in the political context yet. So that was another thing that I think was like over-promised and under-delivered. But I mean, we can talk more about the financial side of this. We can talk more about the startup side of it, whatever you want to talk about in terms of like, are we in an AI winter or not? It is an interesting question.
I mean, specifically for Sora, right? I think that will be the next big breakthrough, AI video. Like once everybody can generate super realistic videos of basically anything, that'll be insane. And I think that'll really drive the next wave of adoption. But I agree with you. It's like the excuse to, the election, this and that, is that really worth it delaying the release to the public by like what, 10 months? I mean, when was the release, like February?
I mean, the other question with Sora is like, obviously the quality is incredible. Like it just looks so good. And I think it also looks really cool. Like I think that's maybe understated, is like, it doesn't just look like stock video. It has a cool aesthetic to it, even though it is a little uncanny and a little weird. I like the way it looks. I like the way Midjourney images look, even though I can still clock them as Midjourney. I'm not getting fooled, but I'm like, I like this style. I like the way it looks. I think it's cool. But with Sora, the question is like, if it comes out and you can't have a consistent character, you can't automatically include a deep fake of yourself, you can't lip sync it to audio, you can't give it lines and then have it automatically generate the audio alongside the video, well then we're not really making movies with it. We're using it as stock footage and B-roll. And how many people really need stock footage and B-roll that much in their daily lives? Like, certainly it'll be useful as like a plugin to make a YouTube short or YouTube editors will definitely use it. I'll use it. I'm sure you'll use it for clips of podcasts and stuff. Instead of us talking, if we're talking about, we're going to the beach, boom, just throw Sora generated video of a beach.
It's
there.
just faster.
Awesome. I'm sure it'll look great. It'll be cool. But we're not going to be in a situation where you call me and you say, actually just turn your video off because I'll just generate video of you talking in an even more cinematic environment and it'll just sync up to all the audio of what you said, and it'll look perfect. And you don't even have to mess around with lighting and camera today because we'll just talk on audio, and Sora will generate the video. Like that's another year away or something. It's gonna be a minute, and then also just like the applications of these things, they still need a lot of human effort to kind of recontextualize them into an interesting and novel format. Like the number one AI, like I guess an AI video is really just AI images that went super viral, was the Balenciaga Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. And that still required a ton of human effort to make it work. It's not like it's not like the prompt was like, make a cool video. The prompt was, I know that recontextualizing Harry Potter and Balenciaga, which are two of the most iconic but very different concepts, if I put them together, this will be interesting. And then the guy clearly went and did a ton of Midjourney prompts to find the right images, and then went and animated them with probably Runway or something like that. And then did a whole bunch of AI voice stuff, and then added a bunch of sound design and like extra lens flares and integrating it and stuff. And like there was a lot of After Effects in that video, obviously. And when that broke, I was like, oh, this is cool. Maybe I should make one that's similar. And I went to ChatGPT and I was like, okay, so there's this video called Harry Potter Balenciaga that's going really viral. Here's why it's interesting. It's interesting because it combines this like, children's phenomenon that everyone knows about with this high fashion brand. And it works very well in the AI context. Like, give me some ideas for other videos that I could make that would go viral like that. And it was like completely uninspired. It was like, why don't you do like Star Wars Louis Vuitton? And I was like, that's not going to do well. Like, because everyone's going to be like, that's derivative of Harry Potter Balenciaga. Yeah. I want something that's like inspired, but also new. And so we're still not there yet where like it's still very much a tool. It's still very much replacing stock footage generation. And so, I mean, I'm really excited for it to come out, but I don't think it'll be as like massively transformative. It'd probably be even less transformative than just ChatGPT, because every high schooler needs to do homework. ChatGPT helps with homework. Not every high schooler needs to generate B-roll. I mean, I guess a lot of people post TikToks and Instagram Reels, and they'll be using this stuff occasionally. But to get a video out of a video generator that it stands alone and isn't just stock footage in the background of something else that's interesting, is tricky. It requires a lot of thought. Like those AI videos where it's blending, like it looks like it's apples, then it's actually birds. You've seen those?
Yeah, that's the photo.
Yeah, that's really cool. Obviously, that's very creative and requires a lot of thought beforehand. And also, how many more are those up there? Like I've seen like one or two that have been really cool. I don't know that I would watch 50 of those, whereas I might listen to 50 podcasts about something interesting that I'm interested in. So the depth of the content will be interesting too. I'm sure people will use them in really, really creative ways though.
Yeah, I think it has like big potential to destroy the stock video or stock image industry, or at least like hinder it greatly, right? Because personally, I mean, I'm paying for like Enviro elements or whatever, right? But it's still like when I have that idea of a clip I want, it's going there, searching them, browsing them, scrolling, and I still don't find anything perfect. I would much rather pay like even $50, $100 a month for Sora or something like that, where I just type exactly what I want, get a new original generation that nobody else used, right? And then use that in my video and get it much faster, and it's unique as well. So I think that will be huge. But the take that it will like completely replace, I mean, okay, let's not go like, super intelligence 50 years into the future. Let's go like 5-10 years. That's coming from people who never made any YouTube videos, right? They don't know what it takes to make a video, like decent video, let alone like top of the level like Mr. Beast, right? So that requires so much skill and so much understanding of YouTube, like how to hold audiences' attention, what to make a great video idea. I think like much more likely will be just YouTubers or content creators using AI here and there, right? So let's say you have like some audio and the neighbor starts like cutting grass, right? You just remove the background noise. Or again, you just add a Midjourney image where you wanted to find a historical image, but you didn't find one, so just use Midjourney one. I think it will be like those small like few percentage enhancements before we see like big disruptions of fully automated AI channels. Obviously, except for like kid content because they're easily deceived. But I mean, like replacing actual YouTube channels.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, yeah, it all comes back to like the scaling laws, and if we spend 10 times as much on a training run, we know that the performance is going to improve. We don't know where the qualitative breakpoints are, and when something goes from, like, it's possible we scale up and we get another few IQ points, and that's great and amazing and might be super worth it and like the best investment humanity's ever made, but it still might not be inspired in the way some of the true masters of certain crafts are, and there might still be room for these creative and unorthodox thinkers to kind of break through. And that's basically what you're seeing when you look at the top performing content or really anything, is like, oh wow, that's a really creative and interesting take, or really creative, interesting approach. That's novel. That's something that you couldn't really get from just interpolating the rest of the universe. And then it's just very will be interesting to see like where the qualitative breakpoints are, where things like really dramatically change, and we're like, okay, this is a noted improvement, because I don't think we've seen that happen from ChatGPT to today. Obviously, there's been tons of improvements. I think the 4.0 latency thing is a really great improvement, the voice stuff, but none of that has been like a 0 to 1, like, oh wow, like now it works. Like, they passed the Turing test. The next thing that everyone's waiting for is kind of like super intelligence, basically. It's like the computer talks now. That's incredible, but we're desensitized to it, and now we're just kind of like rolling this out and implementing it. But we're just kind of like, okay, let's take advantage of this. It's amazing. Like, we've created fire, but it'll be a while until we, actually do everything we possibly can and squeeze all the possible innovation out of this.
Yeah, the standards are so high. It's almost like AI needs to cure cancer or something for people to be impressed, right?
100%. Yeah, I was thinking about like how, if teleportation was invented, how quickly do you think humanity would become
like Neuralink.
desensitized?
Nobody cares. It's crazy.
Neuralink is
it's
crazy.
Amazing.
Nobody really cares. Yeah. We become desensitized to things very, very quickly, and it just becomes the new standard. And so, even if teleportation was invented, like, I bet at a certain point people would be like, I don't really want to go to New York
it's taking
today.
away jobs.
Well, not even that. Just like, I think people would just be like, yeah, I'm fine to just stay in my house today. I'm not going to teleport anywhere. And then, of course, there'd be like, the build out of this stuff is incredibly complex. I mean, you need to move a lot of sand around the world to make a lot of silicon, to make a lot of transistors, to make a lot of chips that train, and they need to live in data centers, and there needs to be power. And so a lot of this stuff, it just takes, every order of magnitude is fought for tooth and nail.
What are some of the most promising AI startups that you're looking at right now?
I don't know. I don't track it that much. It's mostly just like whatever I'm using. So ChatGPT, I think, is probably like in my home row on my phone. I use the audio description constantly, talk to it, get a big answer. It's amazing. Huge improvement in just usability of the internet. Like, the internet's gotten really messy and spammy and ad filled, and it's very hard to go to Google and get a good result. And I think the ChatGPT app has really improved that. Although, Claude seems also really strong, and they kind of go back and forth. Unless you're doing something really complicated, like sticking with the UI pattern that you know and love and are used to is probably fine. It never seems like it doesn't seem like the gap is widening between any of the companies, where it's like, oh, I'm getting left behind if I don't switch. It seems like it's been fine using any of the state-of-the-art models. And then I use Captions app pretty frequently for like making little clips, adding subtitles. Great. I really like the way that they've thought about like just the user experience and bringing more and more features in there. They still have a little bit of ways to go on the actual design of the app and making all the different like sub panels and buttons like more usable. But in general, it's like a very cool applied AI product. Other than that, definitely use Midjourney, and I get the Midjourney magazine, which is honestly probably one of my like favorite AI products. Is just looking through that.
I need to check it out.
It's very, Neat. Yeah, it's really cool. They'll just it might be a couple bucks a month or something, but it's great. Um, and then I'm trying to think of what else I use. I mean, there are cool stuff out there like the clones, and there's people playing around with it. I use this app Cubby, which I think you might like. Um, so with Cubby, what you could do is you could import all of your podcasts into this app. It uses Whisper to transcribe everything. And then you can search through all the transcripts, highlight different things, create collections. You can export video clips from there. And so you can basically create like a compendium of your podcast. And it'd be really valuable. A lot of podcasts do this where they'll say, let's say, you've asked 10 different guests about Zuck's strategy at Meta. You could create a compilation episode that's like an hour of the best Meta Zuck clips. And then you could put that out, and that could be an hour long just on that. Or you could do a different compilation episode just on image generation, right? And you could have a ton of different things clipped together. And then also you could just go and search across everything. Oh, I think someone mentioned this app Cubby. Let me go see where else it's been mentioned. Boom, boom, boom. And it's good for research and stuff like that. So I've enjoyed that, but it is a very specific use case because I have a lot of video footage to process and whatnot. So it's been pretty important.
I think this becomes like super powerful once you have hundreds or thousands of episodes, because there are channels on YouTube that literally do this manually with Joe Rogan. They just like find one interesting topic, go through like hundreds of episodes and compile the most interesting parts and get millions of views, right? So like, why not every creator do that for themselves? It would be super.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be a big lift to a lot of the podcasters over the next few years is creating clips. They've already done clips and shorts channels that help with just growth, but the compilation episodes really help with revenue, because you can put out a 4-hour, like imagine, Andrew Huberman has talked about protein powder probably a million different times. I don't know if he's ever done like a full episode on protein powder. He probably has, but like, people who are into Andrew Huberman talking about protein powder could listen to 2 hours of him interviewing a bunch of different people, get a bunch of different perspectives all through the Huberman lens. There's no reason why Huberman himself shouldn't be able to monetize that, put new ads on it, get AdSense from it. Like it's a pretty interesting lift. So I've actually been pitching some creators to say like, hey, I will help you get your compilations channel, your best of channel set up. I want to buy ads on it. Put me first in line, because I think this is going to do very, very well, because I'm already seeing it happen it might already be happening to you and you're not even getting paid for it.
I think this is like especially good for the viewer, because say like there's a podcast and they talk about like 20 different topics and you're interested in one topic really deeply, right? Like for example, let's say you're watching Lex and you want to understand AI danger, right? Like what are the dangers of AI? And somebody's saying like it's going to kill us all. Somebody's saying it's going to be fine. Why not just watch like 30 different episodes of the top AI experts all expressing their opinions, and suddenly you can form your own view rather than, it would take you like weeks to go through all the materials manually.
Yeah. And some of this is happening on the platform side. Like if you go to YouTube and you just start watching AI safety debates, it will recommend you other podcast episodes. And I think that it can create like mixes of content specifically, and there are automatic playlists as well. So I don't know if Lex specifically has this turned on or YouTube has generated this yet, but there's no reason why they couldn't. You could go to his profile and see that he has, a politics mix, and it's being AI generated, and it's still just full episodes. But then over time, YouTube should be able to roll out just, we went inside the episodes, we found the relative most important segments, and we cut all those together for you, and we did it for you, and it's just there, and you can just click on it and listen. Some product manager at YouTube will probably do this in 15 years.
Yeah, dude, man, the thumbnail testing feature, that was been like in the works for like 5 years. Like
I know it's going to take a long
They're
time.
They're so slow. It's insane.
Well, they have a monopoly. No one's leaving, so they don't need to hustle.
Yeah. All right.
This is the way it works.
I want to be respectful of your time. So last question I'm going to ask is about the Neuralink. Do you think it's inevitable that all of us will have something like a Neuralink in the future? Because like once somebody has it, it could, enable them to get 1,000 times more done in the same day.
Depends on what you mean by future. If you mean like hundreds of years, like, yeah, why not?
Okay, let's
If
say
you mean like
10,
10 years,
10,
like
20.
no way. I don't think we will have. I don't know how to like put exact number of this, but I mean, let's call it like 100 million, daily active users in the United States in 15 years. I would be pretty unlikely on that. I think Neuralink is going to be extremely valuable and useful for people that have injuries, and that's going to be a really long path. There are a lot of people, and just scaling up the process. I mean, it's like putting rockets into space. Like it's going to take 10 years to get these into everyone's, everyone who
Maybe I
needs them.
shouldn't say everyone. I meant like once it's actually proven to be safe, and maybe it costs a few $1 million, so that once a certain CEO gets it, well, everyone else is kind of forced to get it, or just they'll be outcompeted. I don't mean like 100 million users.
Yeah.
I mean like once it's kind of proven that it's safe.
I think that will happen, but like there are a number of improvements that need to happen, because even just moving the mouse, if you have functional limbs, like that's not that much of a lift. Like I don't know that I would see a significant performance benefit from having the current state of the art Neuralink, right? Because I can just move the mouse. And so it's not like it's giving me an extra modality. It's currently just replacing an existing functionality. And so I would be hesitant about getting the current version, not for safety reasons actually, but I would be hesitant about getting it just because I don't know that it would really improve my life right now. But if we play it forward and we are able to pull more data, and it does prove to be a higher throughput interface, then absolutely that will play out. One person will get it, they'll be safe, and it'll be like, drinking coffee or any of these things that become memes and everyone has to do them.
I mean,
carrying a phone. We're already augmented, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't have a phone, like it is hard to stay on top of business and life in the modern world. And a lot of people don't like what that's done, and they find it hard to unplug, and maybe that becomes more difficult in the future. But at least for now, it is the game theoretic equilibrium is everyone carries phones, and in the future, I think you're right. The question is it 10 years? Is it 30 years? Is it 50 years? But yeah, that's where we're going.
Yeah, I will make a counter argument saying that, it could be like thought to text, and then you have an AI agent reading all those thoughts and then acting on your behalf. So it's not like you have to move the mouse and do actions. You'll just have the ideas and approve different actions with AI agents doing them. I think that could be like much sooner than people realize.
100%. But I think that the number of like threads essentially that you need to pick up a word from someone's brain versus an X and Y axis, which is what they're pulling right now, is it is a step change qualitatively in the amount of data throughput. And so that obviously is something that I imagine they're working on. I imagine that they need to get there, and it'll be awesome when they do. But it is certainly not a capability of the V1.
I agree with that. Thank you for your time, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you have a good work ethic, then listen up, because I'm building an elite group of people. The goal is to personally help them make money with AI. Now, there are only 2 conditions. Number 1, you have to be in our community. And number 2, you have to take massive amounts of action every single day. Because I'll be working with you one-on-one, we can only accept 10 people. If that sounds like you, then make sure to join. The link is in the description.